Hello there, Salim Omar here from Straight Talk CPAs. I'm joined today by Abhi, our senior accounting advisor, CFO. Abhi, welcome.
Hi, Salim. Thank you for having me today.
So, we're going to talk about a topic why growing your business can actually reduce profit. Most business owners believe that growth solves problems. If revenue, the top line increases, everything else should improve. There should be more profit, there'll be more cash, there'll be more stability. And on the surface, that makes sense. But what we've seen over the years is that growth can actually create new problems.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it can reduce profitability. Now, that sounds counterintuitive because growth is usually seen as a sign that things are working. But if the underlying structure of the business isn't strong, growth does not fix the problem. In fact, it amplifies it.
Yeah. So one of the reasons this happens is because growth brings complexity. So more customers, more transactions, more people, more moving parts in general. And with that complexity comes higher costs. Sometimes gradually, sometimes very quickly. But with that complexity comes the higher cost. You may need to hire ahead of demand, invest in systems, increase capacity, and all of that happens before the full benefit of the revenue shows up. So even though revenue is growing, margins can start to compress and cash flow can become more unpredictable.
That's where business owners start to feel it. The business is growing, but it just feels harder to run. There's more pressure, more stress, more decisions, more things that can go wrong, and often less margin for error. Because if the business was already operating with tight margins, growth increases the strain. Not because growth is bad, that's not what we are saying, but it's because the structure wasn't designed to support it. And I want to
that's
give
100%
folks,
correct. Yeah.
yeah, and I want to kind of add an example for our listeners. We worked once with a business owner that was growing quickly, kind of like 25-30% year over year. Revenue looked great. From the outside, everything looked like success. But when we looked closer, something interesting showed up. Their margins were actually declining.
When we broke it down, the reasons became clear. To support the growth, they had hired in additional staff, increased their overheads, taken on more operational complexity, but their pricing hadn't adjusted and their processes hadn't become more efficient. So the additional revenue was being offset by the additional cost.
And in this case, even though the business was bigger, it wasn't necessarily stronger. Same business, more revenues, but more pressure and lesser profitability than expected.
So this is the key idea. Growth doesn't create strength. It reveals and amplifies the structure of that particular business. If your margins are strong, growth can accelerate the profitability. If your margins are weak, growth can accelerate the pressure. If your systems are efficient, growth becomes manageable. If they are not, growth creates chaos in the system. So growth is not the solution. It's kind of like a multiplier.
I liked what you shared there. Growth is not the solution, it's a multiplier. When we see business owners struggle is when they chase growth without fully understanding the numbers. They focus on revenues, but not on the margin structure, not on cost behavior, and not on operational efficiency. So decisions are made to grow the business, grow the top line, without fully understanding what that growth will require. And that's where things start to feel reactive.
So, a more disciplined way to think about growth is to ask a different set of questions. Not just how do we grow the revenue, but instead focus on what happens to margins if we grow, what happens to the cash flow, what additional costs are required to support this. Because when you understand those dynamics, growth becomes intentional, not reactive.
And this also connects back to pricing. I know you and I did another video on that. If your pricing is already tight, growth becomes, it puts just even more pressure on the system because you're scaling a model that doesn't have enough margin built into it. On the other hand, businesses with stronger pricing and positioning tend to grow with less stress because simply the structure supports it. So if there's one idea to take away from this conversation, it's this: growth is not the goal by itself. The goal is to build a business that can grow without breaking it. Because a business that grows but becomes more stressful, it's less predictable, it's less profitable, it isn't actually moving forward. Disciplined businesses focus on building the right structure first, and then they grow into it. And that's what allows them to scale and endure over time.
If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For personalized tax strategies and expert guidance, scan the QR codes on your screen to visit our website or book a complimentary consultation with our team. Thanks for watching.